Hi, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. This is Phil Hodston with Esturit. I'm the VP of Enterprise Solutions. Today's webinar is about, have you been dreaming of a digital workforce? And the purpose of this webinar is to introduce you to new ideas, new concepts, new software that's actually in production today that can affect how you do application maintenance support in new ways that perhaps you haven't thought of before, or if you thought of before, you don't know how to execute against it. So today we're going to open up a window into that world for you. We have two gentlemen that will be speaking today. One is GK, who's our Chief Strategy Officer for Esturit. GK has been a Silicon Valley veteran for over 25 years. He has rich knowledge in the areas of artificial intelligence, cloud services, product engineering, and big data. So GK is the Chief Strategy Officer for Esturit, and he'll be our first speaker up. Our second speaker is Murali Subbarao, who's the founder and Chief Executive Officer of Parlo. Parlo is an artificially intelligent chatbot piece of software. We're going to see an overview of what Parlo can do, how it's installed in certain companies today, and you're actually going to see a Parlo demo as well. And after which, myself as moderator will ask Murali some of the questions that the audience brings my way. So with that, I will turn it over to GK.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate that introduction. Hi, folks. Good morning and good afternoon, whichever time zone that you are in. Thanks for joining this webinar. Just to give you a quick snapshot of who we are at Esturit, we are about 400 plus employees company globally located. Our corporate headquarters is in Sunnyvale with offices in Princeton, New Jersey and the UK, and also in Bangalore in India. So these are the 4 development centers that we have. Roughly 50% of our revenues come from what we call it as ISV line of business. That means the product engineering work that we do for leading software companies such as IBM, Informatica, etc. And the remaining 50% comes from industry vertical business that we do with healthcare, retail and e-commerce, banking and financial services, and healthcare. So these are the industry verticals where we do quite a bit of work. So this is our workforce. In the next slide, we give you a snapshot of which areas that we are highly focused on. Data and analytics has been company's backbone offering. We do quite a bit of governance, risk, compliance, followed by big data and analytics. That includes predictive, cognitive analytics. We also offer something called digital transformation solutions in the name of artificial intelligence, IoT, and variety of other leading edge technologies. The third area of focus for us is the product engineering services. As I mentioned before, we actually co-engineer, co-develop several leading edge software products. The fourth is subscription billing and revenue management. We are experts in the quote to cash management process. So we have the ability to integrate best of breed application and offer billing solutions for your organization. The industry verticals that I have already spoken about. So with that as a brief background about Esturit, I would like to move on to the next slide, which talks about how AI being used by digital companies. Here is a Forrester survey that we are looking at. Nearly 37% of the respondents have confirmed that efficiency is one of the key factors in IT applications and operations. Efficiency improvement is the driving initiative. Our whole presentation is about how do we improve the efficiencies, leveraging the digital workforce by joining hands with the physical workforce. And you will hear more and more about how technology and the services pieces are coming together to offer that efficiency improvement. There are a variety of other areas that you can see in this slide, particularly mitigating the security risks and also gaining better customer insights. So each one of those areas will also be the added advantages when you leverage artificial intelligence as a solution. Next slide, please. Okay, here is a reality quadrant that I would like to talk about. If you take from no automation situation to a full automation situation, and also on the x-axis from a typical brick and mortar type of company to a completely digitally transformed company. That is the wish list many organizations have. Your best chance or best bet is using and leveraging artificial intelligence to build a cognitive enterprise that can actually encourage joining of hands between digital workforce and physical workforce. So this is the fourth quadrant, an ideal quadrant for everyone want to be in. There are a variety of ways one can reach this path. You can actually sail through digital transformation initiatives within the organization. You can also parallelly look at variety of automation scripts versus all the way up to artificial intelligence. But we will drill down into a greater level of detail in the subsequent slides about how do you build a cognitive enterprise and become a digitally transformed company. So that is the crux of the whole model here. Next slide, please. So here is the combination that you see from our partner Parlo and S28 coming together and offering this solution. So on the left-hand side, you see what we call it as AI-based automation. There are certain leading-edge NLU and NLP technologies that you are going to hear more in this webinar, followed by certain machine learning algorithms and also conversational enterprise bots that can be interfaced with voice, email, chat, any one such technologies, and also the platform as a service that you will hear more about it. So that is the technology parts of the story. However, building a digitally transformed company is not all about buying few tools. You need to enable each of these tools that fits your business needs. Your regular annual maintenance and support initiatives across application maintenance, followed by how do you assess and train both your physical workforce as well as digital workforce to make this transformation. And there are a variety of things such as what kind of governance and workflows that you need to put in place, and also your business policies and business rules that needs to be configured so that the bots, the enterprise bots, follow those business rules. It's all about business ethics. You must be reading a lot of press about how effectively artificial intelligence can be used, at the same time following the business guidelines. And finally, last but not the least, is the providing certain predictive and cognitive analytics. So these are the service enablement factors. So this particular slide gives you an idea on how we bring both the artificial intelligence tools, combine that with our service model to offer a comprehensive solutions for all your organizations. So with that brief introduction about the overall big picture and the model, I would like to now invite Murali to talk about Parlo as well as the artificial intelligence tools. Murali, it's all over to you.
Thank you, GK. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. Parlo is a Silicon Valley-based company that provides a platform for enabling smart bots that are conversational, that can be deployed within your enterprise to augment your workforce and in some cases assist your workforce. We incorporate state-of-the-art AI technologies to enable you to delight your customers, bring in better experience and higher efficiency for your organization. So first, let's take a step back and look at what is the impact of this technology transformation that's happening today. And take a quick lesson in history. If you look at over the last few hundred years, some of the biggest changes have come from the steam engine back in the 1800s, and more recently, early robotics and IT. These have revolutionized the world in over a period of 10 to 50 years. And if you look at the impact that they've made, they have increased the productivity at a global level, impacting roughly about 10 to 20% of the world economy. Now, contrast that with what's happening with what is projected with the AI automation that we are currently in. The projection is that it's going to provide a 0.8 to 1.4% increase in productivity growth. What does that mean? It means that about 25% to 30% of the world economic growth is going to be driven by AI, and it's going to impact all aspects across the globe. That's sort of the projection that came out from a report from McKinsey. Let's take a look and see what does it mean at the organizational level. So when you look at an organization, a digital transformation means that you are dealing with mobile, cloud, data. And there's a new element that's come in, and that is the millennial workforce. A third of the workforce today are millennials, and even your customers make up about that percentage. One of the key distinct elements of the millennial workforce is that they're used to messaging. That means they are used to quick interactions, being able to get immediate instant response and a completion of the action. Gone are the days when you could just rely on an email or submit a form and expect a response back 24 hours later. Now you need instant response. So how does a company respond to this need and expectations of this workforce? So that requires being able to bridge the gap across the various IT systems, the processes that you have, and bring in this conversational element in there. And so what that means is CEOs of companies need to figure out, how do you enable automation that you're already working on or putting together, and bringing in the cognitive and intelligent elements into that automation processes. So first, let's take a look and see, what does a bot mean, and what can an enterprise bot do? First, it can process text, voice, data, images. That means it can take as input various forms of input that can be given to it. It understands and interprets and analyzes and makes predictions. Let's take an example. If you say that, if you type in or send a message saying, I got locked out of my system, it's able to understand it and say, that means you probably have a password reset issue, or it's an access issue, or it's something that you need approval for. So it understands that, and therefore can follow the context, maybe ask a question as to what the application is, where you're accessing the system from, etc., so that it can take the action, guide you to the appropriate knowledge base article, maybe guide you through a set of steps that need to take, or even take the necessary action to complete the approval process and say, you're enabled. So that's the range of things that a bot can do. And this can be done in two forms, either in a conversational mode, or it can be done in an assist mode, where the bot is actually directly talking to the employee or the customer, or in an assist mode where the bot is assisting your human workforce with information that they can use to speed up the response time. So once you have the bot, what can you do with it? A bot can be deployed across a wide range of areas, across both internal functions as well as the external functions. And it's expected that roughly about 20 to 30% of today's actions by a workforce in all of these functions have the potential to be automated through a conversational capability, through an AI-based bot that can be deployed. Today's webinar, we're going to focus largely on the ITSM space. So let's go into what that means. So very first thing that needs to happen in a conversational bot is you got to understand language. And so here's a scenario of a situation where you're in you call the help desk and say, hey, I lost my phone somewhere near Matterhorn. I may need a new one. I'd prefer an upgrade if possible. Very simple request. A human would understand that stuff. But for a bot, this could be very difficult, because there's a lot of things in there, because as you start parsing through this request, you find that there are multiple intents. There's a lost phone, there's a new one, an upgrade, and these could have three different processes, three different ways for which it needs to be handled. And they need to be handled probably in sequence, or sometimes if it's an executive who's lost the phone and they really need a phone right now, maybe needing a new one is more important than trying to file a lost claim in there. Second, an enterprise phase need to understand the enterprise vocabulary. Matterhorn is not in the Swiss Alps where you had a meeting. It was actually in a meeting room in probably some building. So need to understand the context in which this request is being made, and need to know what the prior context is. Who is asking for it? What is the phone they had? And what are they allowed to have as an upgrade? So these challenges have to be addressed from a bot understanding language. And the range of interactions can be very varied. We think roughly about 30% of these interactions are fairly simple, and about 70% can be complex. I have a couple of examples here which are not related to IT. A simple one is show me all available condos. This is a property developer firm that provides inventory of units that are available. Very simple query. Or it could be very complex. show me 2 3-bedroom condos, 1,500 square feet, adjacent to one another, adjacent to each other, and south facing above the 10th floor. Maybe not spoken in a full paragraph. It could be broken up into different pieces. Let me give you a couple of examples in the IT area. Simple one would be, if you could just hold on for one moment, please, Phil. I'm going to give another example of the IT area. One is, simple one would be, I have a password reset. Very simple. A complex one could be, I created the order. What is the status of my order? I was expecting it yesterday. I haven't received it. When you try to process it, it might be that the CRM system has the order, but it got stuck in your ERP system because of the fact that you couldn't, some validation check that was needed to be done wasn't done in the CRM system, and it's hanging in the ERP system. So the bot needs to understand this stuff, interface with these systems, and be able to appropriately come back with the necessary follow-up for getting the additional information to go through the validation process. A second example might be, today, enterprises deal with hybrid environments. You have a cloud environment and a on-premise environment. And in those situations, there's considerable complexity involved, and there's discrepancies between the various systems. And these sort of things require a much more nuanced understanding of what the problem is and how it needs to interface at the back end. So those are the kinds of things, and 70% of those issues that require attention end up being in those areas. Thank you. So what's under the hood? So we started off with, on the left side with the customer or employee, and that's where they start the interaction. It could be through variety of channels. As GK said, it could be text, voice, email. Sometimes it's a document that's submitted, and through all of the familiar platforms such as Slack, just the website, mobile app, etc. What needs to happen is that today, those interactions are either being handled through a self-service system, a portal, or a human agent. Introduce the bot. A bot comes in the middle, and it needs to do 3 major things. One is it needs to have the ability to carry on the dialogue, which means understand get in the request and be able to follow through on that. Understand the language. I hit upon the criticality of understanding language, and then the behavior engine, which is recognize the context of it. So again, it's a password situation. If somebody comes and says, hey, I need to reset a password, it says, okay, what system is it? And then NLU needs to understand the elements of it's a password reset and expressed in maybe 10 to 20 different ways. And then the behavior engine needs to be able to go ahead and interface with the backend systems to take care of it. And in the backend systems, it could be through an automation process. You have an RPA system, could be through APIs, etc. You would do that. Now that is the core elements of the bot, and the bot designer is really the way by which you create them, bring them to life, provide these skills for these bots, because different bots can have different set of skills. And you decide what sort of skills need to be provided, what sort of conversation elements need to be provided, what sort of interactions need to be done. And we have a low-code environment that allows for that bots to be created. So I'm going to touch on the 2 core elements of the platform. One is the NLU Engine. We call it Broca. Broca stands for, Broca is part of the brain, which does speech and language comprehension, a very important part for all of us. So we call our engine Broca. It's, from our perspective, one of the most advanced NLU engines designed specifically for the enterprise. It starts off by taking in the information that you have, which is could be in the form of chat logs, CRM information, documents, knowledge base articles, variety of forms, which is what we call the enterprise discourse, the way conversations happen in there. We take that in, and that gets processed into a core engine that we create. And it has 3 elements. One is what we call a semantic representation, understanding the meaning of the language. Grammar engineering, which brings in elements of language. How is the English language structured? We know English language can be quite funky in terms of how the grammar is. It needs to be able to parse the different ways people express things. And the machine learning elements, where you bring in the capabilities of statistical understanding of expressions, and therefore you put all of these 3 together to get the best approach so that you can train a bot to speak your enterprise language with minimal training and not needing huge training data sets. Once you have that, what you end up is a bot that has a neural semantic representation. What that all it means is it has the way the brain would think of, our brains would think of language. It has that representation of how people speak, and then be able to learn as the conversations expand, as changes happen in the company, it's able to take that and continue to expand its knowledge in that. So let's go and look at the next piece. So once you have that, the broker piece, there are key elements that come out. One is it's minimal training to get it up and running. Second, it understands your language, keeps pace with how things evolve. And a very important part is it can handle a fair degree of complexity in terms of both the intents or the actions that you need to do and the details regarding those intents, what we call the entities in there. And lastly, very important for enterprises is depending on the type of data and the actions need to be done, whether you want it on the cloud or you want it to have it on-premise or a private cloud version that you control. Now, one way to measure the capability of an NLU engine is to look at how well it scores on what they call the F-score. An F-score is a simple measure of saying how well does it, what is the accuracy of it, and how many of the things can it recall correctly. So it's called the quality and the quantitative measure of the performance of an NLU engine. So we took one of the benchmarks that's out there, recently published by the Technical University of Munich benchmark, and Microsoft Lewis, one of the NLU engines that is available, scored top on that. And we ran the same tests working with those authors of that study, and we felt pretty good about the fact that we scored very well against this benchmark. And we would run this benchmark against each enterprise data set to make sure that it performs at the level that you expect it to perform in your organization. So the second one is the behavior engine. This is the one that actually gets the work done. This is the workhorse. It needs to understand the context of the conversation because the conversations can be very varied depending on the types of skills that you've enabled. It needs to maintain focus, which means that you may, the expression of the request might come in stages. It's a conversation. You may give a piece of information, another piece of information, and you need to be able to relate them together and follow through. And it needs to connect with the backend system to get things done without changing your backend systems, without changing your processes in the backend system. That's what the behavior engine does. So now you have that. How do you go about trying to figure out what is the right platform? And we recently wrote up a blog called, which says the 5 must-haves for selecting a bot platform. It's available on our website. I'm going to just touch upon a few key things that you should look at. First, you would measure its ability to learn. Can it independently learn based on the information that you have already in your enterprise? Can it ingest that and learn it? So you're not like an English teacher having to teach from grade 1 and bring it up. Number 2, on an understanding basis, can it understand the complexity and nuances of your organization so that it can deal with the specifics of what needs to happen? And the third one is from a deployment point of view, does it have all of the components of creating the dialogues, understanding language, and interfacing with your system? So it's integrated with your backend systems and processes and can be deployed in cloud or on-premise. And the channels that you care about, where do your people interact? Is it on voice? Is it on text? Is it through your mobile app? Is it through Facebook? Is it through Slack? You need to understand those things so that can it deploy in those channels where you need to interact, and it could be more than one channel. And then from a training point of view, how easy is it to train? Is it automatic? What sort of human involvement is needed to do the training in there? And lastly, from a pricing point of view, how do you price this? Does the platform allow for ways, is it a monthly license fee, or can it be performance basis, or based on just usage metrics such as the number of API calls? So those are the elements that we would recommend that you look at before you choose a platform for your organization. So now that we've gone through the platform, let's take a look at a couple of use cases for IT. And 2 of the typical use cases we run into are interactions with the IT help desk and the service management use case. In the help desk, typical ones are about answer questions on products and services, get the information or take actions, and really get the answers quickly and provide the help that they need. In the ITSM space, many times it has 2 elements. One could be take the low-hanging fruit items and actually complete the acts, On other cases where there's a complete ticketing system, can you make the resolution of these tickets quicker, faster, and make the person respond and be more efficient in getting these resolutions done? So those are the general class of problems that we run into in the IT area where AI can be applied. Let's go into the detail on a couple of examples. The first one is on a situation where you bring in a bot as an augmentation, so an assist mode, in an assist mode where you're assisting your service agents to handle tickets. And let's say it's a ServiceNow ticketing system that you have. So the users, your users are submitting the tickets to the standard way in there. What you can do is you can employ a bot, an enterprise bot, and you can pass these tickets to an enterprise bot, and the enterprise bot in parallel in the background look at the information, parse the intents, the requested entity, the parameters, and based on the training it has, it can do certain actions to either update certain additional information, bring in some reference material, maybe look at similar tickets, and maybe even suggest what the resolution could be, and update those as notes into the ticket. So by the time a service agent comes in, they've got some help, some magic elf sitting out there helping them so that they can go ahead and complete it. So no change to your process, but there is some boost that you get in your organizational efficiency there. Let's look at a second case where it's a help desk situation where a request for help comes via email. So here, instead of sending that directly into your ticket, if the focus is on trying to respond quicker and have a deflection, improve the deflection of tickets that need to be handled by a service agent, you can have the email go directly to the bot. The bot can, again, do the parsing, based on the skills it's trained, even go ahead and respond with a quick response by bringing in a relevant article, or complete the action and say, hey, I got the job done for you. And in that case, file a ticket saying, I got a ticket, but I actually closed it, and say it's a deflected case. Or if it says it's beyond its skills or it's not capable of resolving it, it opens a case so that the service agent can take it and then follow through in the normal course and complete it. So these are some two general modes by which we see you can bring in a bot into the organization. Let's take a look at one case study we had with the leading university IT help desk. They had a situation where they really had about 12 different help desks. And here's the IT organization that said, hey, we get all these requests coming in through one place, but we do have different colleges within the university that's handling this. And one of the things we have is how can we make the assignment of these correct? How can we prune this properly so that we can resolve this quickly and be more efficient and also provide better experience? And the solution was to bring in an AI chatbot in there and handle these questions both from a students, faculty, or the admin staff. And that was the solution we proposed with the AI chatbot. And the outcome, this is a case study where we are in progress. The results, the projected results based on some analysis we've done with the data, is that we could do about 20% of the incoming tickets could be handled by the bot without even going into the help desk. And then another 20% of these could be automatically assigned, classified, so that the resolution time from the IT help desk is faster. So it doesn't get bounced around because it got misclassified earlier. So this is the type of things we expect that you should be looking for when you get into a project for your organization. Here, digging in a little more detail into one of the other situations is where you have a case where they had a knowledge base and ability to answer questions. So that's sort of the knowledge base articles. They had about 200 knowledge base articles. And they would do for a variety of different things. And the interface was an FAQ. You put in a search string and you try to pull the information that you need through the FAQ in there. So what we did was we wanted to show the contrast, the difference between what is possible through a current lookup mechanism versus what can be done through a bot. So on the left side, where it says under the inquiry column, we looked through pairs of requests. The first one was a return a phone. It understood what the request was, and the search query through the lookup gave the right answer. But we went to the enterprise bot, it also performed really well. But the same request, if it was expressed as need to exchange my phone, we found that the answer was from the search result was really number 11th in the query on the second page, which means really you didn't get the answer. But with the bot, it understood the intent that is it's about exchanging or returning a mobile device and brought the right article in there. So the next phrase was around the lost or stolen mobile device. And in here, as you can see here, even the first result of phone stolen, it didn't find the right answer. But with the bot, you could do it. And as you go in with more complexity, you realize that the bot can be trained continuously to get the right result at the right time. So you get the message that the language understanding is very critical. And once you understand the language, you understand the intent of what needs to be done. And once you have the intent, you go ahead and take the appropriate action based on how you train the skill, either to solve the problem or to bring the necessary information or to go ahead and provide it to the agent so that they can handle it faster. So with that, I want to give you a feel for how the ways in which you could have a bot deployed within the IT organization. So with this, so how do you get started? How do you get started? So GK, maybe you can suggest some ways in which a company can start looking at bringing AI into their organization.
Thanks, Murali. I think that's a wonderful overview about what AI can do. But before I go into responding to this, I would like to remind all the audience that you are on a webinar mode. And if you need to submit questions, please use the Q&A link and feel free to chip in your questions and we will try our best to answer them before we conclude the webinar. But coming to the AI readiness, I think as I mentioned, there are a lot of elements. There are a few different ways that Murali spoke about training the enterprise bot, but there are many different scenarios that are possible depending on your organizational need. So what we typically do is we bring in 3 months of your ticketing data, and we have actually built automated tools that can actually analyze this data very quickly and give you a complete analysis that gives you an idea of what is the ROI, where could be started, what are those transformational aspects that they can look at in the near future versus longer term. All this can be done within 3 days. So that probably could be an approach we suggest as a next step. All right, so we talked about the questions and okay.
Okay, great. So we're looking for questions. If you have questions for our experts, we're looking for you to provide them. And I will start off with the first question to you. The question is, you showed a ServiceNow diagram. ServiceNow has its own chatbot sort of technology that it's kind of jumping into. It's relatively new. How do you work with ServiceNow? What would be your modus operandi?
Yeah. So ServiceNow is a platform that allows for other companies to come in and complement the capabilities of what they have on the platform. And we work with ServiceNow in a couple of different ways. Our clients are looking for ways in which the three primary ways in which they're looking at engaging with the ServiceNow implementation. One is the incoming tickets that are coming in. They want it to be processed and assigned and classified in the right way and loaded into the system correctly. So that's one of the ways where the interface into ServiceNow can be handled through a conversational interface. The second area is that an existing ticket could be the action could be taken by a bot. It can actually not only take the ticket submitted, but actually complete the action. So that's the second way where there are certain tickets that can be handled. Password reset is one that comes up constantly as a low-hanging fruit that should be addressed through a bot. So that can be handled. And the third way is where people are looking for is saying, can you classify it correctly? Can you assign the right agent or the right category for the ticket in there? So those are the three ways in which we are seeing a need for a conversational bot to be brought in, or an assistant-based bot to be brought in a ServiceNow situation.
Great. So thank you very much, Murali. We have another question. This one's for you, GK. And the question is that when you're doing the cost justification for this type of application, does senior management worry about the effect it's going to have on morale in the workforce? What are some of the sociological implications of this?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about this in the industry, and I think it's a very valid concern, in my opinion. That's where, as a service engine, that we come into the picture, understanding the overall governance model and the business guidelines that are in place for the organization. Because the bot is something that the way you train it, there could be supervised learning, unsupervised learning, the variety of things that we can coach the bot to join hands with the physical workforce. However, if you don't provide these guidelines with respect to both business ethics, as well as with respect to governance and workflows, and finally, what is the outcome that both the senior executive or at a working level that you want to see in the form of analytics? So that is something that we all need to pay attention to. And that's where this partnership will actually bring as value to the user.
And GK, if I may add, when we're talking to clients, one of the things that we hear fairly regularly is that the workforce is sometimes tired of handling routine questions that come in where they already have answers established and maybe in an FAQ or it's fairly deterministic. So in those sort of situations, they are looking for ways by which the bot can really relieve them of these sort of boring tasks so that they can spend more time on higher value added elements in there. So that's another way we're seeing how they're looking at it within the organization.
Great, thank you so much. So we have another question from the audience. Do you have your own cognitive service competing with Alexa, Watson, and Cortana, or are you using some third-party service? Can we integrate with one of these?
Good question. So Parlo, when we started off, we actually integrated with Alexa, Watson, Google API.ai, With.ai, Microsoft Lewis, etc. And so enable those AI platforms to be integrated. But as we started deploying these into enterprises, we realized that the level of flexibility that's needed, the level of control we need to train the bot to speak the enterprise dialogue was really challenging. It was really hard because these are things that are completely hidden. And these are based on training that's based on volumes of data that you can't override for a specific enterprise. So what Parlo has built, that was the birth for Broca. So Broca came up, and we have a neural semantic model that can handle language. It allows for grammar engineering. It allows for the statistical learning components in there. And if an enterprise, however, has their some of the training sets for based on an Alexa or a Watson piece, or the Parlo platform allows for you to connect to them so that for certain parts of those interactions or certain set of skills, you can bring that into the skill set for the bot.
And that's a great answer. So whatever the customer environment is, it looks like Parlo can integrate into it and take advantage of it.
That's how the platform has been built, and that's the model we've taken.
So it's more of a complementary sort of approach versus get rid of this or get rid of that. It's into what you've already done, which I think worked really well. So how long does it take to get an application up and running? If someone said go today, and the Estuate engineers went on site and they started working with the client and they came up with a use case, what's typical timeframes for implementation so you can actually see it working in your environment?
Got it. So the short answer is about 60 days. You want to get it 60 days.
60 days, that fast?
60 days to get 60 days to get it up and running. And we when we get in, what we have a fairly well set up process for which we get the requirements of what you're trying to do. It's the skills that you need to have established. Mm-hmm. We go through that. We go through, get the necessary material that you have, train the bot with the set of skills, and in about 60 days, in 60 days, we can have it up and running and give you the opportunity to see how it's performing, and understand, learn, because this is the interactions that people need to have with the bot. And through that, we go through a refinement process that happens. So 60 days is our goal, and 60 days is how we get companies up and running for a certain skill set. And the reason we go by a time-based approach is because the number of skills you can train about are infinite. So our goal is to take something where you can truly see value, get it deployed in the organization so you can see the benefits of it before you start expanding, and have a roadmap of which how you're going to expand on the skill set in there.
Okay, so just a quick follow-on question. If a bot comes in with an intelligence level of 5 and a scale of 1 to 10, as it goes through the learning algorithms, gets smarter, how much will the 5 go towards 10? How far up can it go?
Yeah. So first, we define that skills based on what is the skill level, what type of skills it needs to do. In some cases, if it just needs to answer a question, or does it need to go resolve something with a backend system, or it needs to interface with multiple systems. They're all different levels of skills, just as you would have in a human workforce. Different people are skilled at different levels of capability. So we would start the same way. When we say in level 5, I typically grade that and saying, how many things can it do? How many things can it do? And as you start allowing it to do more things, which means some of it is getting more refinement in its understanding of the language, the vocabulary that is changing in the enterprise, and some of it might be relating to integration you do with the backend systems, the processes that you use, and you can slowly bring it up to 7, 8 over a period of 6 months.
Right, well, thank you for that. Another question is that when it comes to application maintenance support, our clients are always looking for ways to make it more efficient, to make it quicker, cheaper, better, faster. GK, apart from AI, what are some of the other things that Estruate is doing that works with AI and AMS offerings?
Thanks, Bill. I think that's the best part, where we as an organization been in the industry for more than 10 plus years and have worked with a variety of customers in providing significant support on application management, infrastructure support in each of those areas. As we progress this relationship moving into AI as leading edge technology, we are identifying modules and components that can quickly be automated, at the same time provide that benefit to our customers. So in a typical application management and service model, that you have variety of things that includes L1, L2, L3 type of support, and also ticket resolution, response times. There are a variety of SLAs that we typically agree with our customers. In my opinion, they will all still remain. The SLAs, the responses, and how we actually do these things from an overall support maintenance standpoint. The key question here is, how do we train enterprise bots on certain specific areas so that we can use and improve the efficiencies to a greater level of detail, and so that we can actually help our customers the benefit of a physical workforce as well as the digital workforce coming together and solving the problem. So as you all probably remember the earlier slide that we showed on the Forrester analysis, more than 35 to 40% of the respondents believe that IT efficiencies can be significantly improved. What actually that means is you can take modules of your application maintenance and support and train your enterprise bots to service those needs. As a result, you get the best ROI.
Thanks, GK. We have another question that's come in from one of the audience members. This is for Parlo. In the customer service example, sometimes customers may be frustrated. In that case, can the bot be programmed to understand customer emotions and provide reassurance? So I think this is more of a, does the bot have an empathetic nature that can be programmed into it?
Yeah, it's an empathy that is programmed, I should say, where there's something called sentiment analysis, where you understand the sentiment based on the words used, the language expressed, etc. And we today would interface with sentiment. Today we would interface with sentiment analysis programs that are there, and so that we can get a grade of the sentiment. So that's one part of it. Are they angry? Are they happy? Are they upset? How upset are they, etc. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is, what do? You need to know what is the escalation process? What sort of reassurance do you need to provide? Is it just language? I mean, if somebody's really angry, do you just say some words to calm them down? Or do you really need to get them in front of some human And if so, what procedures does your company follow? You need to understand that stuff. So with the bot, you can connect to a human call. You can submit a ticket with the escalation and give them a sense that this is a ticket that's going to be prioritized high, and you can expect through our process a response time in 2 hours or 30 minutes or whatever is your company's process. So it can allow for that to happen. So it's a combination of understanding the sentiment, and second is what is the process that you need to follow, and that can be programmed within a bot.
Right. So I think one last question, because we're slowly getting to the end of our time. You know, let me give you the old banking scenario. So the banking scenario is that I call my bank and I get into a voice response unit, and I get into what I call VRU hell. Press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for that, go back to press 2 plus 1 plus 0. It never gives me the answer I'm looking for, and then it disconnects me. You know, everyone has had that sense of frustration in dealing with these insurance companies and these large banks. And so everybody just hits 0 as soon as they hear the VRU. And sometimes the bank won't let you hit 0, right? And you're looking for ways, I just want to talk to a live agent, right? So how does the bot handle that sort of, your competitors is old school technology VRU. How do you see Parlo eventually surpassing that sort of technology that's in place today?
Got it. That experience you talked about with voice is something that you have bots today that do that, where it's all scripted, everything is scripted, and you just can't deviate. And those are bots that provide, can cause frustration to your customers. What you really need is really a combination of things. Allow for some simple guidance where they can follow through. At the same time, allow for free-form input. So if they say something different, if they express a different intent, that you can quickly switch topics and get them to the right place where they need to talk. So in the ticket booking example, let's say you're going through and trying to book a ticket from, say, San Francisco to Boston, and you go through the process and you're at a stage where you're going to book the ticket, but suddenly you say, wait a minute, next week I'm flying. What's the weather like? Should I be flying next week or the week after? And you ask, hey, what's the weather in Boston? Now, if it's a completely programmed one, it'll just completely get lost. It says, no, tell me, it'll ask for the next question that's expecting and will not answer or even acknowledge the fact that you're asking about weather in Boston. A smart bot that can understand human dialogue can say, okay, I got to answer this question. Go in, answer the question about the dialogue, about the weather in Boston, and then be able to come back and pick up the conversation on helping you complete the ticket. Because if the weather is good and you still want to fly, go ahead and complete the thing. That's what the smart bots need to do. And the technology exists, and Parlo bots can be designed to handle these nonlinear dialogues.
Great, super. Okay, so we're going to, let me do a quick wrap up. Once again, this is Phil Hotston with Astrid. You've been having a discussion about dreaming of an AI bot workforce. We want to thank you for attending today. We were planning on doing a live demo today, but we had a little bit of a legal issue with one of the demos. So contact us directly. We'll set up a private demo for you. We'd be happy to do it. I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us in the Estuit webinar today. It's a series of webinars that Estuit puts on almost every month. Please hit our website at www.estuit.com for future webinars for interesting topical areas like this. And we want to thank you for attending today. Have a great afternoon, everybody.